The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the tennis court where laughter and the thwack of rackets once filled the air. Today, I wasn't just a spectator. I was part of the game, my heart pounding with each serve and return. Mark, my husband, watched with an unreadable expression as his friends, Tom, Alex, and Ben, engaged me in ways that blurred the lines of our marriage. Their touches were more than just friendly, their whispers more than mere encouragement. As the game unfolded, so did a dance of seduction that left me questioning everything. What started as a simple tennis match had spiraled into a whirlwind of emotions and desires. And now, as the last ball was struck, I stood there, breathless, wondering if this was the end or just the beginning of a new, thrilling chapter. The moment I stepped onto the sun-drenched tennis court, the world seemed to narrow down to the green expanse before me, the white lines crisp against the vibrant grass. The air was thick with the scent of summer, laughter, and the subtle, unspoken challenge of the game. Mark, my husband, stood there with his racket, his smile as bright as the day, inviting me into his world. I've always been the spectator, cheering from the sidelines, but today was different. Today I was part of the action. Mark's friends, Tom, Alex, and Ben, were already there, their camaraderie palpable, their competitive spirit almost tangible. Tom, with his lawyer's charm, was in the middle of a story, his voice carrying across the court. Alex, ever the silent observer, was adjusting his grip on his racket, his focus intense. And Ben, always the life of the party, was recounting some wild tale from his latest real estate deal, his laughter infectious. As I approached, the group's attention shifted to me. Mark's eyes met mine, and in that look, there was a mix of pride and curiosity. Could I handle their game? Could I keep up with their banter? The nervousness in my stomach twisted into a knot, but there was also an undeniable thrill. Mark handed me a racket, his touch lingering a moment longer than necessary, a silent encouragement. "Ready to show them what you've got?" he whispered, his voice low, sending a shiver down my spine. I nodded, feeling the weight of the racket in my hand, the texture of the grip familiar yet foreign in this new context. The game began, and with it, the dance of competition. Mark and I were on one side, facing off against Tom and Alex. Ben, our enthusiastic cheerleader, was shouting encouragements from the sidelines, occasionally offering unsolicited advice that made us all chuckle. The atmosphere was light, filled, with playful banter and the occasional cheer when someone scored a point. I was enjoying myself, feeling the thrill of the game, when Tom, noticing my struggle with my backhand, approached me. "Let me show you a trick," he said, his voice smooth and reassuring. He took my hands, positioning them on the racket, and began to guide my movements. His touch was professional yet intimate, and I felt a flutter of surprise at the closeness. His hands lingered a bit longer than necessary, sending a shiver through me that was not entirely from the cool breeze. I could feel Mark's eyes on us, a mix of curiosity and something else I couldn't quite place. The game paused as Tom's lesson turned into a moment that stretched, filled with an unexpected tension. His breath was warm against my ear as he whispered, "Just like this," guiding my swing with a gentle firmness. The air around us seemed to thicken, charged with an unspoken promise. I was acutely aware of every touch, every slight pressure of his fingers against mine. It was as if the game had faded into the background, and all that existed was this moment, this connection. Tom stepped back, his eyes locked with mine, a silent question hanging between us. I felt my cheeks warm, not just from the sun, but from the intensity of the gaze. The game resumed, but the dynamic had shifted. There was an undercurrent now, a subtle but undeniable change in how we. As Tom continued to instruct me, his hands lingered a bit longer than necessary, and then, in a moment that felt both surreal and electric, he kissed my hand. The court fell silent for a heartbeat. I was taken aback, my cheeks flushing with a mix of embarrassment and an unexpected thrill. Before I could react, Alex and Ben, perhaps sensing the shift in atmosphere, came over. Alex kissed my cheek, his touch gentle yet firm, while Ben, with his usual exuberance, kissed the other. The sensation was overwhelming, a cocktail of awkwardness and an illicit thrill. I glanced at Mark, expecting him to intervene, but he stood there, his expression unreadable, his body language passive. The air was thick with tension, and I could feel the eyes of everyone on me. Mark's silence was deafening, and I wondered if this was some sort of test, or perhaps a game within the game. My heart was racing, not just from the physical exertion of the tennis match, but from the emotional whirlwind that had just swept through me. Tom, still holding my gaze, finally spoke, his voice low and almost apologetic. "I hope I didn't overstep." His words were like a balm, yet they did little to calm the storm inside me. I managed a weak smile, unsure of how to respond, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on me. Alex, sensing my discomfort, stepped in. "Let's keep playing, shall we?" His attempt to steer the situation back to normalcy was appreciated, but the air was still charged with an unspoken tension. Ben, ever the jester, tried to lighten the mood with a quip. "Well, if this is how we're playing now, I might need to start practicing my kissing technique." The laughter that followed was strained, but it helped to break the ice. We resumed the game, but the dynamic had irrevocably changed. Each serve, each return, was now laced with an undercurrent of something more than just friendly competition. Mark's serve came next, and I watched him, trying to read his face. Was he upset? Amused? Or was this part of some plan I wasn't privy to? His serve was... The game had ceased to be about tennis. The air was thick with tension and unspoken desires. Mark's friends, now emboldened by his inaction, began to engage, with me more intimately. Their touches became more deliberate, their kisses more passionate. I was caught in a whirlwind of emotions, feeling both violated and strangely liberated. Tom, with his lawyerly charm, whispered something in my ear, his breath hot against my skin. His hand lingered on my waist, guiding me into a dance that was no longer about the game. Alex, the silent observer, now had his hands on my shoulders, his touch firm yet gentle, as if he was trying to communicate something through his fingers. And Ben, with his infectious laughter, now had a different kind of playfulness, his lips brushing against mine in a way that was both playful and provocative. I was in the eye of the storm, where every touch felt like a spark, igniting something deep within me. The boundary of our marriage was blurring right before our eyes, and I was both the spectator and the participant in this unfolding drama. Mark watched, his eyes dark with a mix of emotions I couldn't decipher. Was it fear, arousal, or something else? His silence was as loud as the cheers from earlier, and it left me questioning everything. As the game continued, the atmosphere grew, heavier, charged with an electricity that was palpable. Each serve, each return, was now a dance of seduction, a silent negotiation of boundaries being crossed. I felt like I was on a precipice, the thrill of the fall both terrifying and exhilarating. The touches from Mark's friends became more daring, their intentions clear. Tom's hand slid lower, suggesting more than just a friendly game. Alex's kisses on my neck were no longer just playful. They were promises of something more. And Ben, his usual exuberance now focused into a more intimate exploration. His lips, finding mine in a kiss that was anything but innocent. I glanced at Mark, expecting him to intervene, to reclaim what was his. But he stood there, his expression unreadable, his body language passive. Was this some sort of test? Or was he enjoying the spectacle, perhaps even orchestrating it? The climax came not with a shout or a dramatic gesture, but in the quiet acceptance of what was happening. I found myself reciprocating, drawn into the moment by the intensity of the experience. Mark's friends, now more than just friends, became lovers in a surreal tableau. The tennis court, once a place of sport, had transformed into a stage for a very different kind of play. Mark, still silent, watched as I crossed a line I never thought I would. The act of infidelity, so public and yet so intimate, was a spectacle of betrayal and desire. The game had lost all semblance of its original purpose. The white lines of the court blurred into insignificance as the boundaries of our relationships dissolved. Tom's touch was no longer instructional. It was an exploration, a silent question to which my body answered with an affirmative. Alex, his kisses now trailing down my neck, whispered promises of a world beyond this moment, a world where the rules of our lives didn't apply. And Ben, his laughter replaced by a focused intensity, engaged in a dance of lips and breath that was both playful and profound. I was enveloped in a whirlwind of sensations, each touch igniting a fire within me that I had never known. The thrill was intoxicating, the liberation from the confines of my marriage both terrifying and exhilarating. Mark's silence was the loudest sound on the court, his inaction a tacit permission, or perhaps a challenge. Was he testing me, or was this part of a deeper game I hadn't been aware of until now? The air was thick with the scent of grass and the musk of desire. Each move on the court was now a step in a dance of seduction, each serve a silent negotiation of boundaries being crossed. I felt like I was on a precipice, the thrill of the fall both terrifying and exhilarating. Tom's hand slid lower, his intentions clear, his touch suggesting a game far beyond tennis. Alex's kisses on my neck were no longer playful. They were a promise of something more, something forbidden yet irresistible. And Ben, his usual exuberance now focused into a more intimate exploration, his lips finding mine in a kiss that was anything but innocent. I glanced at Mark. After the game, as we sat in the clubhouse, the reality of what had transpired began to sink in. The air was thick with the scent of sweat and grass, but now it was also heavy with the weight of our actions. Mark finally spoke, his voice low and filled with a complexity of emotions. I didn't stop them because I was scared, he confessed, his eyes meeting mine with a mix of shame and something else, something darker. But also, I enjoyed watching it. His admission was like a key turning in a lock, opening up a door to a part of our relationship we had never explored. His words hung in the air, a stark contrast to the laughter and camaraderie that had filled the court just hours before. I felt a chill run down my spine, not from the cooling evening air, but from the revelation of his inner turmoil. We talked for hours, dissecting our feelings, our marriage, and what this meant for us. It was a revelation, a turning point. Mark's confession wasn't just about his fear or his voyeuristic pleasure. It was about the boundaries we thought were set in stone, now crumbling before our eyes. He spoke of how he felt watching me with his friends, the mix of jealousy, arousal, and a strange sense of pride. I wanted to see how far you'd go, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. I wanted to know if you'd choose me or the thrill of the moment. I listened, my heart racing with a cocktail of emotions. Anger, betrayal, but also a confusing sense of liberation. Had I not felt liberated, even if momentarily, by the attention, by the breaking of the monotony of our predictable life, as we delved deeper, I shared my own whirlwind of feelings. The initial shock, the unexpected thrill, and the overwhelming sense of being desired. It was like I was someone else out there, I confessed, my voice trembling. Not just your wife, but a woman with desires and choices. The conversation shifted from confession to exploration. We began to discuss what this could mean for us. Could our marriage survive this new chapter, or would it be its don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.